Alright, welcome in. And today, I'm gonna do a tier list. It's time. After, I'm gonna say at this point, approximately 1,700 hours in the game, I think it's okay. I think I can expertly judge some of these, and so the bias is going to be, there is going to be bias in this. Let's start off. Tier lists are never unbiased. I always feel like tier lists are sort of bait. But it is something that is helpful for people that might have an opinion one way or another, and maybe some perspectives one way or another. So my perspective is from the perspective of hard mode. So there's going to be some points deducted for vehicles that you have to buy. There's going to be points deducted for DLCs, because obviously all of those you have to buy. Just overall usability, and there's going to be some clear winners. We already know probably who the scout winners are because this is the scout tier list. But I definitely have some use cases, obviously, that I would like to apply to some of these. So we'll go over that. But basically, that's going to be my disclaimer for all of these videos is don't get butthurt because, right, it's just an opinion. The opinions are mine and mine alone. As you can see, we have basically the S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and instead of D tier, I'm going to put a do people even use this question mark? Because, right, why would you ever use some of these vehicles in hard mode? So there's going to be some of those that go into that category. So I'm going to start with, I did organize these a little bit. So the furthest at the top here are DLC vehicles, so you have to purchase these, and then the 3 purchasable vehicles, and then the rest are just in no particular order, vehicles that you get from expansions and whatnot as you play the game. So depending on what map you go to, that's going to change this. So yeah, we'll talk about a little bit about each scout, go from there, but let's start up with the Con Marshal. Con Marshal is technically a DLC. It is free though, so you do get that, I believe, for free. At least you used to get it for free. I could be wrong on that. Used to be really good, but they kind of nerfed it by reducing its fuel tank in half. Really high power to weight, really good tires. However, I'm going to throw it in C, and we might move these around as we go through. The reason why I'm putting it in C is because it loses a point, so I would normally put it in B, because it is such a good scout, but you have to buy it. Okay, so you have to pay your, how much is this one? $20,900 to buy this one. Okay, that's including no upgrades. It is level locked, so from the beginning of the game, it's obviously not really worth it. And it's strong. It is very strong, but like I said, you have to chase it with a fuel vehicle because it's got way too low of fuel. Essentially, 40 liters. Or 11 gallons of fuel is how much this thing has. So it's not really a good, from the perspective of hard mode, like I said, I'd probably even put it in an A maybe, back before it got nerfed way long time ago. In fact, even back then it might have even been the S tier scout because there wasn't a lot that was available to us back then. But it definitely got dropped way down just because of the nerfs. So I'm going to leave it in C for the moment, and like I said, we might move these around as we go. The Jeep Renegade. I'm going to put this in the do people even use this? So this is the first one in the would you even bother buying this scout? It is only $13,400, so it's cheap, right? However, it can only have 31-inch tires. I mean, it does immediately come with a roof rack and a snorkel, so I mean, you can immediately use it in a hard mode situation. Is it worth it though? Do people even use this? I guess leave a comment below, but I would never see a situation where you would buy this scout in a hard mode situation. It's just not, it really can't tow trailers. It's too weak. So I mean, that's basically where I would leave this one. So this is a tough one for me. So the Jeep Wrangler, it is one of the only scouts that has that crawler suspension. It's sort of a unique suspension that makes it good, right? It can tow trailers. It has a relatively powerful motor. It comes with good tires. You can upgrade it to better tires. Pretty fuel efficient, obviously. It's got that combination of fuel efficient motors, good power to weight rating. So I mean, it's definitely a good scout, but again, it loses a point because you have to buy it. So I mean, it's a $20,100 scout that you have to buy, and there isn't a lot of use for scouting in this game. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of bias in that. And again, from hard mode standpoint, would I buy this over some of the other scouts? I mean, maybe from the beginning. You know what? We might change where this con marshal is. This is going to end up being low B, is what I'm thinking, and this might move up from B depending on, or from C, from where we end. So keep an eye out on the video. We'll adjust these as the video goes on, and possibly some of these changes. Okay, so where do I even start with the Apache? Okay, let's start at, we should probably add another character of, did you even buy this? So the DLC for the Apache, it's a weird scout. It is relatively capable. It's really thirsty. It is front wheel drive unless you put the all wheel drive on. It carries a ton of extra spare points and fuel and that kind of thing. It can't tow trailers. So I'm going to definitely put this in the and I would even put it, we're going to rate this, do people even use this from left to right? I would say I would probably buy this over this, because the Apache is $42,200. So it is an expensive purchase as well. So this one's probably going to be towards the bottom, I think, by the end. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those that makes me scratch my head. I understand why they brought it out, but it was just a very interesting scout. So let's move on. The Rezvani Tank. More of a recent DLC. Came with some interesting looking tires. It's one of those, like, you get these essentially like wrapped, studded chain tires, I guess, that come with the pack. You also get some unique all-terrain tires that are just cool looking. So you mean you get some additional tires, which is sort of unique to DLCs, besides for, of course, the jetpack. The tank, however, it suffers from the same, both Rezvanis have this problem of not being able to tow a trailer. And this one is not, it's a hard one to compare because obviously we have the other Rezvani. So this one doesn't have a lot of repair points or spare fuel in comparison. Now, if this was by itself, I'd probably actually put it right below the Wrangler. Just because it's basically a Wrangler capability-wise, probably even a little better capability-wise, a little bit more fuel and a little bit more repair, I believe, but it can't tow a trailer. So I mean, it loses some points because of that, and again, you have to buy it. It is about the same price as a Wrangler as well. It's $20,500. So pretty good scout. I mean, pretty decent, but again, would you even buy it in a hard mode situation? If both of these would probably be A, if it wasn't from the perspective of hard mode. So moving on, we have the Rezvani Hercules. This one, this is a tough one, but I'm going to put it in A. And it's probably going to shift around a little bit. But the Rezvani Hercules is basically a more agile, capable of putting mud tires, but not capable of towing a trailer F750 in terms of parts, spare parts, fuel, that kind of thing. This thing can carry a ton of stuff. It's very fuel efficient. It can drive across entire regions and scout the entire map, but you have to winch a fuel trailer with you. Or any other trailers for that matter, because it can't put a trailer on it. So I mean, this one would be close to S tier. It is expensive, $39,400. But I don't know. It's one of those things that if you're gonna buy a scout, it's basically one of two that I would buy, and we'll get to that one in a minute. But this is one of two that I would buy for scouts. So yeah, this one's definitely worth looking into. And when I tell people to buy DLCs for the game, I always tell them, if you're gonna buy a scout DLC, this is the one I would buy. None of these other ones I would tell you to buy. So even the tank, the Jeep pack, even though the Jeep pack is fun to use, of course, the Apache, and the next ones that are up, the Range Rovers. I don't know. I wouldn't tell anybody to spend money on these, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not the greatest. All right, so next, I have to put both of these in here. We're just gonna do these together. So the Land Rover 90, it's a little more expensive, 21,400 versus the 110, which is the more boxy one, is 19,200. I actually prefer the 110, so we'll probably go like this, and that's gonna go on the bottom. And I would still prefer the Jeep over these two, just because it's more fun. It's like almost like a challenge mode. They have problems with towing trailers because they're small, they're lightweight. They do have decent power to weight rating, but they're really small tires. So I mean, if you're gonna have small tires, I'd rather just have the Jeep. They have ground clearance issues. Again, I'd rather just have the Jeep. And the Jeep pack is better because you get a better scout with it if you're gonna buy it as a DLC. So that's sort of the two there. Like I said, they're not the greatest scouts. Again, do people even use these for scouts? I don't really know. So we are done. That is the list of DLC, like separate purchase vehicles. So let's move on to the loaf. Where do I put the loaf? So I think the loaf, it's one of the non-DLC vehicles that you can buy from the beginning of the game. You have to go to a Russian region to buy it. But you don't need, there's no level requirement, but there is upgrade requirement, obviously, that you have to get, mainly from Tamir. It is the professional. We have to say it. It is definitely a very interesting scout to play with. Where do I put this? I feel like once you get all of its upgrades, it almost has to go up here. I'm going to put it below the Rezvani Hercules, but I feel like the loaf is one of those that, because it's so cheap too. It's $11,300. The upgrades are relatively easy to get and early in the game. If you're gonna buy a scout, do I want to leave it in A? We have a lot of other scouts to go through. Because you have to buy it, I'm gonna drop it down to a B. It's just because you have to buy it. I think otherwise it would go into an A. But it's going to go above the other two here because these are DLC and these are not. This one's not. You can just buy it. But it can go forever. It is an amazing winch vehicle, believe it or not. It can winch very heavy vehicles back onto its roof, or onto its wheels, I should say. It feels like it's going to tip, but it really doesn't. It's sort of a weird vehicle, but has tons of repair points, tons of fuel. Pretty fun to use, but really small tires. So I mean, it's something that it's not the most capable of scouts, but I still would put it in a high B probably. Just personally, like I said, because if we're rating from the perspective of hard mode, all of these other vehicles are DLC vehicles that you have to buy. Which one would I buy more? This one's cheaper, and it's probably just as capable and can go just as long. So it's sort of like a fun optional mode, and I like a little bit of a challenge as well, which is why we're talking from the perspective of hard mode. So all right, so probably the number one vehicle that I would buy, without a question, is the Loadstar. Loadstar is 39,400, so it's basically almost the same price as the Rezvani. I feel like it has to go in S. Even though you have to buy it, there's gonna... if we're talking S, it's the best of the best, and it's hard mode, so you have to buy it. So it's gonna stay in the top of A, I think. Because we're gonna put there's gonna be a few vehicles that go in S. I think you know what they are already, but there's gonna be a few that definitely go in the S tier. But yeah, this is definitely the #1 vehicle that I would buy. It's just so capable. It uses truck transmissions and tires, truck engines. It has tons of power. It doesn't really care if it's got a trailer on it. You can put a crane on it and load a scout trailer if you really want to. It's a little fuel thirsty, but this is definitely one of the best scouts, I would tell you, to just cruise through the entire game if you're going to use a scout. So I mean, it's definitely one of those that especially once you go to Alaska and get the lifted suspension for it so it doesn't bounce its nose off the ground. Really good scout to buy. So I would say that's probably my #1 purchased scout. And then everything else sort of is stuff you buy in the game, except for one more, this Yar. So let's talk about the Yar. I don't really know. This is something that came up recently. So the Yar used to be really good. It was, again, probably like but I would say maybe right below this. It's a little cheaper, 30,500, but it's level locked at level 10. So you can't get it like right away. However, the upgrades for the Loadstar kind of prevent you from getting it before level 10 anyhow, unless you go directly to Alaska to go get it. However, the JAT tires, since the JAT tires came out, the special TM tires on this one, the balloon tires, kind of lost value. It's sort of the same thing with the Con Marshal too. The Con Marshal has those same TM balloon tires. Really good. Lost value once the JAT pack came out, because MS3s are essentially make every other scout equivalent to the Yar in tire quality, or possibly even better depending on the vehicle. The Yar can go for a very long time on its fuel and reserves, and has plenty. It's a little bigger, so I mean it kind of goes in the class of the Loadstar, where it's a little bit larger. Again, really good at towing vehicles, or towing both vehicles and trailers. I don't know, where do I put this? Do I put it above the Rezvani, or do I put it below the Rezvani? I feel like if I was gonna buy a scout, I would buy the Rezvani before I bought this. Because again, this is the category of purchased. So we are essentially done with purchasable and or DLC scouts at this point. So that's basically where the lineup as it goes. We have I like how this is looking. Loadstar, then Rezvani, then Yar in the A. We got 3 Bs, we have 1 C, and then 4 do you even use this. So that works. Okay, so now we have ones that you get from the game. Now obviously depending on the season that you get it, there's no particular order here. So let's start with the AAC. This was from season 13. Really interesting scout, very heavy. Has a very unique special transmission that kind of acts like a high range, but has very, very low fuel consumption with all-wheel drive, because it is an all-wheel drive, always-on vehicle, I believe. If I'm saying that correct. No, sorry, it's switchable all-wheel drive, but it's front-wheel drive without the all-wheel drive on, so you basically want to always have the all-wheel drive on. And the diff is always on, so that is always good for high-range type gearboxes. So it definitely works really well with its special gearbox. It's heavy, it tows trailers really well. It doesn't have a ton of fuel capacity, but it's got a ton of extra fuel. and repair points, so you can definitely like go a really long way with it. Pretty exceptionally capable. It's heavy, like I said. It's sort of a interesting scout because it's not super light. Like if you compare it to like, I think the Burlax is like somewhere around 5 tons, the AAC is like 4 tons, so it's like, if I'm saying that number right, it's 5239 to 4016, so maybe pounds, I don't know, kilograms or whatever that number is, spreadsheet wise, whatever the data in the game is. But it's a heavy scout, and you can kind of feel it, but it's definitely a good scout. It's a little bit later in the seasons. Would I put it above a Loadstar? I don't think so. Would I use this more than a Hercules? Yes, because I don't have to buy it. So I think that's where it's going to go. It's going to go in the A, just below the Loadstar. That's going to be my pick for that one. Alright, so next. Speaking of the Burlax, Burlax is Season 11. You get this from Scandinavia. Interesting truck. It's very slow. Originally, I very much hated this truck. It is sort of a pain in the butt to drive because it's got the 6-wheel center axle spins unless you have it in, you know, diff lock on mode, which it is not. It is switchable. So you pretty much have to live in low plus if you want to not slip. So it is slow. It is ridiculously fuel efficient, but it is very tippy. They seem to have made it, they put some winch points like right on the top of it. So they seem to have made it a little easier to winch itself back upright, or even winch with another vehicle. But it's still tippy. You got to drive it very carefully. It takes a little bit of finesse to drive the Burlax. However, got, of course, the biggest tires of any Scouts, bigger than most trucks, 69-inch tires. They are unique. They are extremely capable in off-road. They also are essentially studded or chained, so they do not slip on ice. The Burlax also, this is a fun fact about the Burlax that I found out in Kola, particularly where I took it. Does not take damage from, it doesn't really kick up ice Doritos. And when I say ice Doritos, the little pieces of ice that pop up when you drive over them. Plus, it doesn't really sink into broken ice either. That could just be maybe because it's lighter, but it's not really a light Scout. It's actually still pretty heavy when it comes down to it, but I mean, it's lighter than the Earthroamers, for example, and the Ford, but not by much. So it's something that I think it's just because of the big tires, it just sort of floats over the ice. So it doesn't really break into ice. Rocks, however, not a fan. It doesn't like rocks. Anything that tips it, it will flip over. But I am going to put it in the S. I almost have to put it in the S. It is a cheat code for any ice zone, any, you know, snow or ice region. As long as you try and keep it off the rocks, it will do magical things in those regions, and it can go and it basically scout entire regions and have fuel left over. So it's definitely worth putting the first one in the S tier. So now we're gonna go on the opposite side, the Caterpillar TH357. You get this one for free in both Yukon and in Season 9, Ontario. You actually get 2 of them in Yukon. The one positive of this, and I have to put this down here, we're gonna put it in the do people even use this. Even though it's hard mode, it's free, but it's worth a lot of money. So it is a nice little boost, especially when you get to Yukon. You get 2 of these. They are $123,800. If you sell it in hard mode, it's half of that. So I mean, you get $60-something thousand for these when you sell them, and if you put stickers on them, you get a little bit more. And if you don't know that trick, just put stickers up. Put stickers in every position that you can put stickers, and then sell it, and you get a couple $1,000s more. So Is it fun to use every once in a while as like a meme? Sure. You take the thing off. To use it as its intended purpose, to load cargo, completely worthless. The controls are awful. Saber, please redo the controls for this so it's actually usable. And then people might actually use it. But unless we're going for realism and loading vehicles, there's no purpose to have this vehicle. So it's gonna go low on the list. Like I said, I would probably buy the Apache over using this, because it also doesn't have the ability to tow a vehicle or hook up a trailer or have any repair points or have a snorkel so it doesn't drown. It's not very usable, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's just it's in the right place. So all right, so I don't know, I hate to say the CK1500, of course it's the OG, right? It's what you start the game with. You get several of them throughout the game. Is it something that I would put... I don't even know where to put this one. We might move this one around a little bit depending, but I think... I mean, it's very usable in a lot of regions as long as you tow a fuel trailer around with it. It's nice and compact. Would I use this over a loaf? Probably. I think that's where we're going to put it high B. It's just, the nostalgia factor is one of the pluses for it. The only negative of it really is it gets whipped around a little bit with heavy trailers, but you can definitely tow a scout fuel trailer with it, and just scout entire maps. So it's very good at just like cruising around doing stuff. If you flip it, you have a scout winch, you don't worry about it. Real deep stuff it can still get through, especially with the new JAT tires, the JAT MS3s. It blows out the headlights, so you pretty much have to plan for putting on the bumper that has the fog lights on it, otherwise you just can't see at night. So that's sort of a hard mode minus, because you don't get to free repairs when you go in the garage, so it's just going to live permanently with busted headlights. So there's that, but yeah, I think that's a good place for it. We're going to leave it in B. All right, so the newest ones, year 4, season 14 Earthroamers. When they first came out, I was it's just like every other vehicle that comes out, right? They come out, they're not really tuned right. They don't have the right amount of fuel. They don't have any repair points. You're kind of like going, what the heck are they thinking with this? They fixed all that. The collision mesh is insane. The balance is insane. I would definitely put the LTi at the top of the S. And I think it's going to stay there. That's probably the #1 scout in the game currently. It is very easy to get if you just cruise over to season 14 and get it. It's a one drive around the map task and then you get it. You have to bring a little bit of repair points and fuel with you to bring something that's got a roof rack, maybe like the Hummer, that kind of thing, to go get it. Should be more than enough fuel and repair points to go get it. So yeah, it's I don't really know what else to say. If you haven't driven the Earthroamers yet, you definitely should. It is insane how capable those things are and how prone to, they do not flip. They're very, very, very hard to flip over, actually, and they have real high winch points, so it's actually real easy to scout winch them back upright. The SX has a little bit more repair points, so let's talk about the SX. So the LTi is going to go above the SX. The SX is a little bigger. It doesn't really gain any power. It does gain a little bit of fuel and a little bit of repair points, but it also gains an always-on diff lock, which I don't think really matters for this truck. I think the size is really what puts it slightly below this one, because this can squeeze between stuff better as a scout. This is better as a support vehicle, in my opinion. So that's sort of where I would put it. Okay, so I think I like where the positions of those are. Moving on, we have the F750, everybody's favorite early game scout. Everybody likes this one. I'm gonna throw in a controversial opinion here. I'm gonna say... So there's a couple of things that ruin this one for me. And it has nothing to do with it being in Cola. Cola is by far my favorite region. It is a joy to go and get this truck. It is joy to go get its upgrades. So I would not put that as a downside to this. It's big, and it can only tow full-size trailers. So, truck trailers, not scout trailers. Which hurts it. It does have a little bit of balance issue. I mean, it's definitely not bad, don't get me wrong. It's not a bad balance. But it can flip, and it's sort of hard to... I guess it's not really that hard to get unflipped, but it has ridiculous amounts of repair points and fuel. But the reason why I would say that this is not as good as some of the other scouts is it needs its own class. Like this and the Earthroamers and maybe even some of the small single-axle off-road trucks need their own support class, right? Where they can tow either trailer, scouts. They could give this a scout trailer hitch, just like they do with these two and this one. And give them, I would say, take away their bed, right? Take away the crane and bed from this. Take away the crane and bed from this. And just make them support vehicles, right? Make them not able to haul cargo. Again, maybe even like the Action, take away its bed, saddles. Just make them into support vehicles. Make a new class. Because this doesn't really belong in the scout class. It's too big. And it's not really... I would prefer to use something else to scout with. This is a great, like, go fix vehicles, go be a fuel truck, go carry a fuel trailer around, you know? Like, it's definitely a good truck, and it really was the top of its class until the Earthroamers came out, until the Burlax came out. I have a hard time placing this one, though. Would I put it in S? Or would I put it all the way at the top of A? I definitely would put it above the Loadstar, just because it's free. Yeah, I'm gonna get comments for this one. I'm gonna put it in the top of A. I think it fell out of S. The Earthroamers pushed it out. Because S is like the top of the top, right? Like 10 out of 10. And it's not quite 10 out of 10. So I think that's where I would put it. Alright, moving on. Making people mad. Gor BY-4, one of the worst seasons. Season 7, everybody hated Season 7, but, you know, it got some interesting vehicles. Let's just leave it at that. The Gor BY-4, gosh, I would put it... It's definitely in the do people even use this. Is it above the Cat? Yes. Is it above the Apache? Yes, because you don't have to buy it. You do have to go to Season 7 to get it. Is it above the Land Rovers? Sure. I think it would go right around here. Somewhere in this area. It's fun to, like, putz around with. But you can't really tow trailers. You can't... I mean, it is, like, relatively fuel efficient. It's kind of fun to putz around. It's got a little bit of speed to it. It's got those sort of unique tires that come available to it. So, I mean, it's fun to use, but is it worthwhile to use in hard mode? No, it's worth more for selling it. Sadly, it's only worth $17,700, so you don't get a lot for selling it. But, you know, you get things, you swap it around. It is what it is. Alright, so here's where... this is gonna make... This might make people angry. So the Hummer. Let's talk about the Hummer. And I think it's gonna make people angry more going back to the Ford. But I think I'm actually gonna put this above the Ford. I think it's gonna go because you don't have, I mean, you get so many of these. Is it capable of towing trailers like the Loadstar is? Not quite. Is it close? Yes. Is it extremely fuel efficient? Yes. Is it capable? Yes. Does it flip? Kind of. You got to drive it a little carefully. It's a kind of bouncy. It gets going pretty quick, so you can kind of get out of control with it a little bit. Carries a ton of repair points, more than the Loadstar does. Carries more fuel. Is more fuel efficient. Actually, it doesn't carry more fuel. I should correct myself on that. It carries basically twice the amount of fuel as the fuel tank. 80 liters or 22 gallons, and then it carries 11 and 11 or 40 and 40 in 2 separate places. Carries 300 repair points, so it's definitely worth it. And I've developed a new love for this vehicle. So again, this is a hard mode perspective. You get this one for free early on. You can use this in many maps for free without having to buy it, without having to not be able to tow a scout trailer around. I'm gonna put this above the Ford and above the Loadstar, but not an S. So that's where I'm gonna leave the Hummer. I think I'm gonna stick with that opinion. Definitely a good truck, but like I said, it's not. I don't think it's S tier, but I do think it's above the Ford, believe it or not. So like I said, I'm probably gonna get hate comments for that one. I might get some down likes, but that's okay. It's an opinion. All right, next. The Con Sentinel. Had to remember what the name of this one was. This one comes from Amir, so this is the only one I'm gonna ding it for the map that it comes from. If this came from Alaska, maybe even Tamir, and you got the upgrades for it somewhere in that range, you would use it a lot more, right? And once you do use it, you find out that it's actually a pretty fun scout to use. Where do I want to put it? I think... So like the AAC, it's somewhere in this range, or maybe this range. So the AAC, probably better. I think I'd rather buy the Rezvani, just because it has more capacity and it's the same kind of platform. It's like a truck, like a pickup truck. It can tow trailers, though, which does give it a 1-up. Why don't we... I think I'm going to put it above the Chevy. We're going to put it at the top of B. I don't think it's quite A. It is good with all of its upgrades, but like I said, that involves you going to Amir to get it. So that's really the main reason why, like, to get the AAC, way easier than getting the Con Sentinel, and it's a better truck. And you have more than enough money to buy either of these vehicles before you go to Amir, and these are better scouts, in my opinion. So that's, I think, a good place for it, is the top of B. You'd have to use it, but a lot of people, this almost made it into the do people even use this scout, because people don't go to Amir. So that's sort of my 2 cents on that one. Is it, you know, is it worth seeking out early in the game? I think so. I mean, I think the challenging regions are fun, but you know, it's one of those that's not really the greatest. So I'm gonna let's move on to the Rock Grinder, MTB 8106 Rock Grinder from season 12. Fun season, relatively easy season, relatively difficult, locked behind a lot of contracts to get to. If you wanted to just go and get this scout, it's not the easiest, because it's locked behind like the 2 bridges and some of the other tasks that you have to do, and then it's a bit of running around, and you usually want to get the ferry open, so there's a lot of different like tasks that you have to do to get this scout. Does that hurt its points? No, I think it's a terrible scout. It's really small. It's like around the size of this Jeep, but you get it for free, and it kind of plays similar. It's a little bit kind of got like the Scout 800 tippiness to it, where it kind of wants to like lift the front tires off the ground. The only reason I'm putting it up here is because it's free. I think because these you have to purchase, I think it's going to stay like bottom of C. I would rather purchase the Con Marshal over this. So let's just leave it at that. It's not a very good scout. You'll know when you get it. It's definitely one of those that it's just not worth using. You can't even like tow a trailer if you have the spare tire on it. I know that's the same thing with the next one, but yeah, it's just they're not really good. They're cheap, so you don't get a lot of money for selling it. So yeah, it's sort of a eh. And on that note, the Neo Falcon from Season 11, especially when you get the Burlax, which outshines it 10 to 1. I think... Which one would I use more? This one's definitely easier to get. I think we'll base it on the fact that it's way easier to get the Neo Falcon. It's maybe a little bit longer, so I think it's slightly more stable. But it's still just in that class of kind of crappy small scout that nobody wants to use. So yeah, we'll leave it there. I think that's a good place for those. Moving on to the Scout 800. Scout 800, I originally hated a lot. I definitely, since the jetpacks, since revisiting, playing the game again, I think it's definitely worth using. You get a bunch of them for free. I would encourage people to use the Scout because it's, like I said, with 39-inch MS3s, it's like insanely stable. It just has a flippy problem with the roof rack. So yeah, I would... Where do I put it? That's the question. It's going to be in this B range. I would put it actually... it's similar in quality to the Loaf. It's a little bit more tippy. Similar amount of repair points and fuel. Similar range. But it's free and it's nostalgic. So you get the nostalgic points for these two. And this one, like I said, it's just a little bit better scout for the Con Sentinel. So I like that position. We'll leave it there in the middle of B. Okay, so this one, interesting. Tuz 166. You get this one free early on in Tamer. You get it again in Season 8, and it's pretty far upgraded. It's really small. You really can't tow trailers with it. But it is insanely fuel efficient, especially if you use its very unique archaic gearbox that's 3 speeds. It can have massive tires. It can have 39-inch tires for a little tiny Scout. If you get the tuned custom suspension, I believe. The tallest suspension. And put the MS3s on it. It's ridiculously capable. It is an all-time all-wheel drive and all-time diff on vehicle, so you don't really have to think about it. It's just kind of flippy and kind of bouncy and kind of fun to take over jumps, and it's kind of in that like challenge mode class of vehicle. Would I put it, again, this is based on the perspective of hard mode that you get it for free. Man, I think I would actually... Do we go above the Loaf or below the Loaf? I think the Loaf is just sort of a unique buy. I think we'll put it just below the Loaf, but I think it belongs in B. For my opinion, for hard mode, it is worth having and using in situations where you need a really tiny Scout to get through little tiny places. And it's free. Like I said, it's too cheap to sell. That's the way I would put this. Is it something that I would use it in the regions that you get it for free? Absolutely. Would I pay $3,500 in hard mode to transfer it somewhere else? Probably not. Like these ones I would. These ones I probably wouldn't transfer them. And below, I would not transfer any of these Scouts to other regions. So I think that's a good place for it. Unless I wanted it as a challenge, right? Like bring the Scout 800 or the Chevy or something to a mirror, you know? You know? So yeah, I think that's a good place for it. And then the very last one, I think everybody knows where this one's gonna go. Maybe, maybe not. It's obviously the best tires in the game, 8.0 mud rating. The only downside, really, there's only two downsides, is it can't go in deep water because it doesn't have a snorkel, and it can't tow trailers. You have to winch things. However, it is one of the most capable tow vehicles and scouts in the game. It can go pretty long distances because it's got a lot of fuel. It's not the most fuel efficient, but it's got a lot of fuel. Everybody knows the Tatarin. You get 2 of them for free. They are worth a ton of money, so if you wanted to sell one and keep one for hard mode, it's definitely worth doing that as well. The question is would I put it above or below the Earthroamers? Controversial take. I'm gonna put it in between. The LTi is better. The SX is slightly worse. I think that's where we're gonna leave it. I don't think it takes the top of the S tier spot for me. For me personally, I think I would rather have the Earthroamer just because it can go way longer distances. It's better at towing trailers, obviously. It can tow either type of trailer. There's positives to this over this. In unique situations, the Tatarin is definitely a lot better. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it. I hope you enjoyed the tier list. This was kind of a long video, and there's going to be a few more to go. We're going to do one that's going to be for highway, and I think I'm going to combine highway and heavy duty. And then we're going to do an off-road, and then we're going to do a heavy. And I don't know if that's the order that the videos are going to come out, but hope you guys enjoyed. Again, this is just my opinion, so leave your angry comments below, but I'll probably just shun you off and tell you that it's my opinion. And have a great day. Thanks for watching.